Holy moly, people. What you are about to hear is a very cursed episode of Dial H for Horror. This episode was the 27th I recorded, and when I recorded it, the audio recorder dumped my first pass and glitched for no reason. It hasn't glitched since. And then it was a file that mysteriously, without discernible reason, corrupted my entire Final Cut Pro library. All my files were trashed. Luckily, after a couple of weeks, I found and restored an older version of my video library. At this time, this file is now taken from a render I quickly sent up to YouTube, unpublished, and then ripped from YouTube and saved to all my various drives. I merely added a few extra touches over that YouTube video and added this intro using a separate library only for this project. Was it cursed? Is it cursed? We shall discover as time goes on. I've had no other problems with this hardware or software until this story was told. So listen, download it, save it, cherish it, because this is a very special Halloween episode of Dial H for Horror. And it might burst into flames, and meteors will crash down onto the internet servers housing it, and my computer might fly away to the moon. By the way, have a good night and a wonderful life. I'll be bathing in holy water later on. Mr. H here. This is a very special case. It isn't mine. It is well known and has gained such incredible popularity that I felt I had to read it aloud to you, Agent XJ7. Perhaps there is some value we can glean once I bring voice to words and we hear this story aloud. It should make some demons very angry. Ha! The secrets revealed within are striking. That was a pun, yes. Anyway, you should have seen the atrocious English usage within the file I found online. This person, if you can call him such, slaughtered the English language as if he were a total moron. He fails. Back to grade school with him. He is such an enormous shame that he should renounce American citizenship, because he has so abused and shamed the American dream through his callous use of our common verbiage and syntax. In fact, he should be denied membership to the entire human race. Out, you animal, out! Go live somewhere with your kind, some Bigfoot colony. And then report back to me what you find. My files on Bigfoot are sadly lacking. Do they indeed like peanut butter? Anyway, regardless, thank you for posting it to 4chan, and good luck in your endeavors within the wilds. Now, pay attention, XJ7. This is the tale of the Ghost Puncher! Ghost Puncher! Ghost Puncher! His name, Chad D. Lifter. Location, unknown, USA. Date, November 2015. The teller and his lifting buddy, Chad D. Lifter, were informed of a palm reader. For some reason, it piqued their interests, and so they journeyed to get their palms read by a stereotypically shaggy and withered gypsy lady. It was early morning, 10 a.m., and they were sat at a table with a crystal ball. The teller began to feel, rightfully so, nervous and reticent due to his Hispanic Catholic roots. He denied the prognostication, but Chad, 'Chad' 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 ' The gypsy grabbed Chad's hand. Chad flexed to show his physical prowess. Then the fortune-teller went white and horrified as she studied his hand with growing concern and horror. She then informed Chad that someone or something was following him.
Did you play any Ouija bullshit?
The woman asked them. Chad related how he had smashed a hole in his drywall while drinking and lifting one night. And inside the recess was a decorative skull he now uses for decor in his bedroom. The gypsy merely shut down the session and allowed the two to leave without paying a penny. At the gym, moments later, the teller was spotting Chad as Chad did bench presses. Some dumb-ass noob, as the teller recalls, was doing curls a mere 6 inches from Chad. An odd occurrence transpired. The noob slipped and a 20 went careening towards Chad's head. But Chad, ever present and ever ready, lifted his bar into the path of the 20. The teller nearly impaled himself trying to catch the bar as it was knocked off angle, but Chad was safe, saved by quick thinking. Chad merely brushed off the incident and brushed off the apologies from the newbie dumbass, and also brushed off the teller's pleas to leave and return home. After their weightlifting session, they went to the teller's abuela's, or grandmother's, sister's house, where they procured some sage and silver. The next day, the teller says Chad looked happier than usual. Chad related how some shit went down at his house. The power went dead that night, despite having paid all of his power bills. The rest of the neighborhood still had power. And then the silverware began rattling. Chad used his flashlight app on his phone to catch a glimpse of a shadow human ducking under the kitchen counter. However, nothing was there, not even shelves. Chad didn't believe in a Ouija shit, and thus rationalized that it was an animal or an intruder of some sort. He grabbed his weight bar and began to patrol the house, looking for sweet justice. Obscenities poured forth from Mr. Lifter as he strutted about. Lo! In the weight room, a small humanoid figure was spied crouching down, so Chad hurled the bar through a window. Don't ask me. Perhaps he knew the sound of shattering glass is anathema to a witch or something. Or he just sucked with his aim. Anyway, Chad was ready for some man action, but the creature had disappeared. At that point, Chad decided that he would have to rely on some Ouija shit and called in a friend for advice. Johnny, the new confident and lifting fellow, advised Chad to burn some sage and carry the silver about on his person. Johnny arrived soon after with some genuine Catholic holy water. "I'll call my grandmother tomorrow to see if she can help," proffered Johnny. "She's one of the medium people." "Ha! Good thing she wasn't one of the little people." Anyway, Lifter merely sat down while his house smelled like old, and did the only logical thing he could think of. He watched that night's episode of American Dad. After a while, he looked for the sage, but it was dried up and dried out. The silver in his pocket was melted, but cold. And then Chad saw shadow figures darting about his room. The lights went off, the TV turned to static, and a high-pitched screaming filled the house. Ah! I would do the same if American Dad was on TV at my house. Anyway, at this point, Chad is getting slightly annoyed. He walked over to the weight room and swiftly smashed the decorative skull into a wall. He merely threw it in one fluid motion across the room until it obliterated the far wall. The house shook, and then the screaming abated, and the lights went out again. Footsteps were heard approaching Chad in the darkened room. At that point, Chad related to the teller that he was only mildly freaked out. Chad's relative panic consisted of dousing himself in holy water and proceeding to swing his fists about the room, wildly lashing out at anything he could find. For the first few attempts, only the howling of wind through Chad's chiseled knuckles could be heard. The concussion of air, reacting to his furious blows, echoed in his abode. And then footsteps were heard walking away. "Nuh-uh!" screamed Chad D. Lifter. He pursued his ethereal menace, swinging wildly, furiously, randomly throughout the house. He obliterated his living room in the process. But it was related to us that several punches did indeed connect to fleshy, invisible characters hiding from the wrath of Chad and his discontent. He didn't remember falling asleep as he awoke. Going to the gym, Chad recounted the evening to the teller, then went outside to make copious phone calls. The teller asked if Chad was calling a priest, but Chad told him he was calling his own home phone and leaving crude, pointed messages to the ghosts. Chad told them in one message that he'd buy a snake and flatten it out until dead with a rolling pin, just to break their ass souls. D-Lifter then went home. A few days later, Chad reunited with his lifting chums. The teller asked Johnny if Chad was okay, because he looked suspiciously normal. Johnny said it was disturbing how well Chad was handling the situation, but had gone over to Chad's and felt the presences. Felt that the wraith-like entities were scared. Scared of the Chad! The Ghost Puncher! Chad had emerged naked from the bathroom in front of Johnny, wiping his ass with a Ouija board imprinted in a bath towel. He then threw it in disgust to the ground and kicked it out into the living room, poured holy water onto it, and then took it outside to burn it in his yard. When the task was complete, he asked Johnny if he was a bit peckish. Johnny was very hungry, so Chad pulled out a Ouija board. He purchased at Spencer's, by the way, and used it as a cutting board, repeatedly stabbing it with a knife when not using it to prepare the food. When done chopping up the tomatoes, Chad broke the board in half across his knee and threw it into a garbage can. After washing his hands, Chad pissed into the garbage can onto the Ouija board. Hey-ho! The pussy-ass teller thought this was too much disrespect to those poor widow spirits, as if those evil things deserve an ounce of respite. Cuckold! After eating grilled chicken salad, Chad nailed another crucifix to his weight room wall. "I'm putting Jesus on my wall," Chad shouted into the room. "And later, I'm gonna masturbate on the bench while thinking about Lucifer's whore daughters." To punctuate his foul tirade, Chad punched another hole in the wall, and then Johnny and Chad left together. Johnny called his grandmother that night, and the next day she arrived at Chad's house with a priest in tow. Both visitors were amazed and stunned to see how Chad was dealing with the spiritual trespassers in his crumbling hovel. The priest cowered and admired Chad as he pissed on a satanic Bible right in front of him. Chad recounted to the priest how he had walked around the house talking shit about Satan. to get the goat of the unclean spirits. The priest left without cleansing the house. He merely ran. But Johnny's granny stayed and began to attempt a contact with the spirits. She discovered they were a group of entities, disturbed that their shrine was desecrated. All of them were scared of Chad, because he had no fear whatsoever of anything they did to unsettle him. At that point, Mr. Lifter entered the room with a dead snake in his hands. The grandmother said the spirits scattered like cockroaches. "Look what I found in the street this morning," Chad bellowed, taking a bite from an apple. "A fucking dead snake!" He threw it on the carpet, kicking it several times, smashing it into the carpet. Then he proceeded to pour holy water and salt on it, and then peeled it up and threw it in the kitchen trash. Johnny's abuela could merely ponder the man's ignorance or mental strength. She continued to try contacting the spirits, but they were continually scattering, screeching in horror about how terrified they were of Chad D. Lifter, the Ghost Puncher. She requested that they tell her what they need to pass on from this domicile. The deplorable entities said they did black magic many, many years ago to get revenge on an asshole landlord. They had hid incriminating evidence against the man in the wall next to the skull Chad had discovered. Chad proceeded to the wall where he had found the skull and forcefully threw a 15-pound weight through the hole to make it even larger. And there, lo, was an ancient folder filled with the documents the spirits had told. After a quick examination, Chad wiped his ball sack with the aged papers. Grandma was horrified. I mean, really. Unapologetically, Chad wrinkled them all up and tossed them into a corner of the room. He screamed to the spirits to piss off and launched a killer punch into the walls, making yet another hole. A 13th hole in that wall. Johnny's grandmother cried for God to have mercy and rushed out. A month later, the teller of this fantastic anecdote and someone's abuela returned to Chad's residence. There were now more holes than wall, but like a halo descending from heaven, the squatting rack and lifting bench were still there, still pristine, and still immaculate. Abuela asked if Chad did what was needed to be done, since the spirits appeared to have left. Chad regaled them with a tale of how he had uncrumpled the papers, found the address of the landlord, and that despite being 60 years older, the man was still alive and old as dust. Chad approached the man's mansion wearing a Star Wars Yoda shirt, with the words, "Get swole you must." Board shorts adorned his lower half, pink sunglasses topped by a backwards Chicago Bulls snapback hat. And then he knocked. A scrawny white male came to the door. It was somebody in their mid-30s, hardly the man Chad was looking for. Producing the papers, Chad demanded to find where the man named within was lurking. "Hey, Dad!" the man shouted into the house. "Someone's here. He has documents." Chad D. Lifter burst into the house and found the old landlord alone in his study. On seeing the papers, the old man cried out, "Who are you? Where did you get those?" A futile attempt was made to snatch the incriminating documents, but Chad was faster. Mr. Lifter punched the old man right in the chops, causing his dentures to fly out across the room and burn in the fireplace. Chad then crouched down into the old man's face to set him straight, Sherlock Holmes style. The man's 30-something son ran into the room and pounced on Chad's back. The fool! Chad pulled the man forward and punched him relentlessly until he hobbled from the room in retreat, puking in the hallway outside the study. Chad told the old man to set his shit straight, or he'd be back, like Arnold. And thus Chad left the mansion. Fast forward a few days, and various cars were outside of Chad's residence. Caught off guard, Chad believed the old man was setting his thugs on the ghost puncher. So Chad grabbed his pull-up bar and went outside in tank top and shorts to confront this bellicose mob. Only to be confronted with various families thanking him for his deeds, bringing him myriad home-baked food and culinary delights. They all praised Chad for helping them get their grandparents' properties returned to them. The documents Chad held were deeds swindled by the old miser. After telling Chad they will remember him forever, and that his heroism was inhumanly noble, they departed, leaving Chad with a giant haul of fresh, lovingly crafted foods, which he instantly dumped into the garbage can. It was all carbs, cookies, brisket, gumbo, useless for the Herculean form of the ghost puncher. And then he returned to his weight room and began lifting once more. A few days later, Chad saw the old man's name in the paper. He had passed away. The community hailed the deceased as a loathsome dick. Funny, but Chad had never heard of the man until that incident. It wasn't certain how the old man died. Was it Chad's physical attack that ended a life? Or did the landlord's jilted and deceased tenants re-emerge to scare the old codger to death and have their revenge? Or was it merely natural causes? Chad didn't have any more supernatural problems since that event, except perhaps once. According to Chad, the ghost puncher, he went into the kitchen for a late-night non-cheating snack. In the kitchen, he was surrounded by full-body apparitions, smiling gleefully at him. Chad merely grabbed an apple, took a bite, and nodded to them. "Holy fuck!" Chad exclaimed. "You guys were real!" They faded away, leaving Chad to return to his bedroom, where he slept and let his torn muscles knit together again before his next workout was to commence. Since then, no one fucks with the ghost puncher. Abuela constantly admires him when she's in his presence. The priests even Hail Mary twice as hard when in Chad's presence, so the teller recounts. And as he struts down the streets of his fair town, somewhere amongst the various villages in this abundantly fruited plain, Chad's lats too big to allow his arms to settle by his sides, his neck too big to fit into anything but a tank top, he strides with purpose and pride as the people of America launch praise from their windows. Praise for the one deemed worthy of the true title of the Ghost Puncher! Ghost Puncher! Ghost Puncher! Like and subscribe before I die! And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can sit.
Depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?